Hey there, folks. Zane from the Infinite Jukebox, aka the #1 Running Wild fan, here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Judas Priest record, Invincible Shield. Do I really have to do an intro for this one? It's Judas Priest. However, if you don't know Judas Priest, which in that case you probably have never heard of metal as a genre of music, and in that case, then what are you doing watching this video? They are inarguably one of the most impactful, influential metal bands of all time, and they are perhaps the most iconic metal band to ever exist, not called Metallica, and easily the most iconic metal band of all time to actually be good. I mean, the leather rebel aesthetic, them helping popularize twin guitar harmonies that were inspired by bands like Thin Lizzy, proving that metal could have mainstream appeal before any actual mainstream metal bands like Metallica or Slipknot ever came around, experimenting with a variety of different metal subgenres in a way that constantly felt progressive while still sticking to their unique bass sound, platforming a pioneering frontman in a genre that was then very much lacking in LGBT plus representation, and creating some of the most iconic metal songs and albums of all time, tracks that are anthems to this very day, are just some of the accomplishments that this band has established for themselves over the decades. And the most insane part of that is that some of those things were done multiple decades apart. I mean, a lot of that stuff did not happen back to back to back like it does for a lot of other legendary bands. Listen, my point is Judas Priest go beyond just iconic or influential. They are perhaps the definitive metal band in terms of the pure cultural impact that they've had on an entire genre of music. There is so much in modern metal that, whether we recognize it or not, has huge dues to pay to Judas Priest specifically, no matter what era of the band you're talking about. And the fact that they're still around today and still putting out quality music is absolutely baffling. So, I digress. Let me just say, 50 years into their career, it's been a whole 50 years since their debut album, because it's 2024. Rock'n'Rolla came out in 1974. 50 years after their debut studio album, they decided to put out Invincible Shield, one of their most consistent albums in literal decades, because why not? Fuck it, I guess. The way that this band can feel so tirelessly energetic and powerful despite 50 years since their debut and over 50 years since their initial formation is absolutely baffling, to the point that I would even go as far as to call it downright unheard of. I truly cannot name you another band on this planet, off the top of my head at least, that's been around as long as Judas Priest has, that still has the same level of staying power in relation to the quality of their music. It's genuinely shocking. Even still, Invincible Shield, their latest album, is downright majestic in its best moments, and I mean that wholeheartedly. I'm not saying that with a hint of sarcasm. For example, frontman Rob Halford is as stunning of a vocalist as he's ever been. He's one of the most iconic voices in the history of the entire genre, one of the most iconic figures in the entire genre, and that hasn't changed here. The guy still sounds absolutely amazing. I mean, on tracks like Devil in Disguise, he practically sounds like a prophet speaking from the mountaintops with how grand he can sound, and some of the more high-pitched vocals that he delivers throughout the record are just as perfected now as they were on Stained Class in 1978, and just as perfected as they were on Painkiller in 1990. The instrumentals here also stand out as pretty great, but Judas Priest has always been a musically more than competent band, and I don't think that's been some sort of controversial thing over time. I mean, even if you aren't into Rob Halford's vocal style, even if you aren't into some of the lyrical content they deliver, I think anyone can appreciate the fact that they're just instrumentally a good, strong band. I mean, here, Ian Hill's bass work, punchy as ever. Scott Travis continuing to prove that he is easily the best drummer that Judas Priest ever picked up since he first joined the band in 1989. And as a whole, I think that musically this is super impressive. Now, the reason I'm neglecting to talk about the guitar work here is because I think Invincible Shield manages to stand out in that quality here more than most other Judas Priest records in recent memory have. Even 2018's Firepower, which was seen by many people as a major comeback album, I don't think quite stacks up to this record in terms of excellent riffs and solos. Richie Faulkner, who was introduced to the band in 2011, provides more of the very youthful energy in the riffs that he's been providing to the band since 2014's Redeemer of Souls. Meanwhile, longtime guitarist Glenn Tipton is still delivering the same ferocity behind the guitar that he's been bringing to the table since the band's inception, and together they provide some amazing riffs and solos throughout cuts like Trial by Fire and The Serpent and the King that really strike me as some of the best work that we've gotten from Priest in literal decades. There's also some pretty notably strong melodies here as well. I mean, the band have always been capable of writing a good chorus or two. There's a reason why tracks like Breaking the Law and Living After Midnight are really crossover successes above all else, but at the same time, I think that there's a certain epic quality about tracks like Gates of Hell and Crown of Horns, for example, that nearly feel power metal adjacent, which is something I don't think I can say about any other Judas Priest album, really, and I mean, if anything, I just hope this makes people stop making fun of power metal. It's a good subgenre, okay? Yes, Sabaton and Powerwolf suck. Just listen to Halloween and, like, I don't know, Rhapsody of Fire or something, please. At the same time, I do feel like a lot of those, again, very cinematic kind of moments never really delve into the realm of cheesiness or anything like that. And that's not to say that Priest have ever really been a band to go in that sort of direction. I think the corniest they've ever gotten was sort of the drum machine era of the 80s. And I mean, hey, I still like that stuff, so I can't really hate on it too hard. And as a whole, I just am super impressed with how Judas Priest as a band managed to continue evolving 50 years into their career. I figured by this point they either would have been A, broken up, or B, just kind of playing the same hits with a quarter of the energy that they had at one point, but nope, they're just putting out great material. The album closing track, Giants in the Sky, is actually my favorite song off of the record. I think it really pays a great homage to a lot of legends of heavy music that have passed away. Rob Halford citing specifically Ronnie James Dio and Motorhead's Lemmy as direct inspirations for that song. And I think it's a really powerful cut and some of the most striking balladry that we've gotten from Judas Priest maybe since Beyond the Realms of Death back on Stained Glass. I also think that Giants in the Sky is an interesting track because Judas Priest could be kind of considered giants in their own right. In fact, I would actually argue that you'd be foolish to not consider them giants, really. But they don't need to prove that anymore. Really, any band that has a string of just a couple of genre-defining albums don't need to prove that, let alone Judas Priest, a band that has maybe 10 albums that are essentials for metal as a whole. And yet, here they are, just not caring about the fact that they don't have to prove themselves in any way whatsoever, putting out Invincible Shield, one of the best records that we've gotten from them in a long while. Even despite creating some of the most enduring metal songs, metal albums of all time, I really do genuinely think that Invincible Shield sets a standard for aging heavy music bands that I don't really know if any other group that is around, that has been around as long as Judas Priest has, is capable of matching. I genuinely think that Judas Priest might be the single most impressive band to be 50 years old that's still active playing today. Fuck the Rolling Stones, Judas Priest. I'm going to give this record 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.